It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 237. We are talking about allergies and the senses. This is day 7 of allergies and the senses, and we're talking about the sense of touch. So today we're going to cover how allergies, as usual, can contribute to both good energy and stressors of allergies. What are they causing, and how can you use them to help? All right, so let's go ahead and start with our basics. Take a deep breath in and release. Take a deep breath in and expand in the belly, expand in the chest, expand in the sinuses, and release. And since, of course, we are working on the sense of touch, even though we've been talking about seasonal allergies mostly as our thing, I want you to breathe into any skin allergies that you've ever had, touching poison ivy and things like that. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and release. All right. So, remember, as always, our goal is to work into these everyday stressors and look at how the senses can either contribute to that stress or help get us out of that stress. And that is the focus of the healing equation. So energy to reduce your stressors, or energy to combat stressors, equals good energy in minus, did I say stressors? Energy to reduce, I gotta sneeze it. Speaking of allergies, energy to reduce allergies or combat allergies equals good energy in from the senses minus stressors. And those stressors we're going to talk about, those stressors that can be from the senses. So when we talk about the sense of touch, we can talk about more than just everyday seasonal allergies. We can also talk about those touch allergies, allergies that lead to atopic dermatitis, or actually an allergy response like something to poison ivy. And these allergens show up in the skin. They're actually triggered by the skin. So with the case of poison ivy, it is the poison that is connected to it that causes an irritation in the skin. So poison ivy, hogweed, poison oak, poison sumac, all of those can actually cause an allergy response. And just a side note, all of those happen to be related to the cashew plant. So if you have a tendency to have a very radical response to poison ivy, like it totally wipes out your system, you might want to see what's happening to your gut and to your sinuses and everything else when you eat something like cashews or cashew butter, because you may be having a similar response to the fruit of a related family plant. Now, one of the unusual ones that I've brought up before is the concept of a polyester allergy, and or non-natural material allergy. And they do exist. It's just that sometimes they're not as apparent. So, you could put on a polyester shirt and walk around. Polyester these days is milled in such a way that it can basically imitate just about any fabric. Even cashmere, it can kind of be milled to imitate that. The problem is that it has different properties than the material that it's actually meant to mimic. And if you don't end up breaking out or having a rash or anything, but what you might notice is that you smell different. You sweat different when you are wearing those artificial fibers. And if that's the case, you are one of these people that has a subtle allergy to artificial fibers. I myself notice that I sweat more when I am wearing things that are 100% polyester or 100% non-native fibers. But when I'm wearing natural fibers of at least 50%, then I can wear the fabric and not have as many issues. But if it's 100%, I just don't feel as comfortable in it, and I start to smell I could start to smell myself rather rapidly in those clothes versus natural fibered clothes. And that's an indication that my body does not like foreign fibers or man-made fibers as my clothing basis. And I'm a little sensitive to polyester. Now, that is how touch is related to allergies. How can we use touch to get good energy in? Well, I want to review points that we've already talked about. We briefly touched on earlier in the week are the sinus points, so that if you have sinus or if you have seasonal allergies, oh my goodness, there is an absolutely gorgeous cloud. I'm going to flip the camera just because I think you need to see it. So look at that cloud just above the tree. Look at how it's gold and pink and blue and gray and yellow. That is fantastic. I just happen to notice these things. Maybe I'm easily distracted, but that is a really freakishly perfect cloud. Anyway, so getting back to the sense of touch, I want to review those sinus points that we've talked about before. And I briefly alluded to them earlier in the week. I talked about the fact that they were at the ends of the eyebrows. So they're both at the outside and the inside of the eyebrows, and you can actually push up into them or push back out into them. And they are at the inside and the outside of the cheekbones. And these are where a couple of your major sinuses exist. So if you have allergies, remember that if these sinuses are not lined up, if your cranials are not lined up the way they're supposed to, then even if you have allergies, even if you don't have allergies, if you just have a cold, things are going to collect. But if you have allergies and these things don't line up, you're going to get stuffiness, and you're going to get chronic stuffiness. So one of the ways to get around that is to push on these points inside the cheekbone, pushing into the nose. Outside the cheekbone at the end, there's a divot here, if you can find it at the end of your cheekbone, pushing into that, pushing into the divot at the outside of your eyebrows, and then pushing into, there is a little bit of a divot up into the top of the eyebrow where you kind of just push up and in, and that helps open up those sinuses. Gives you just a little bit more breathing room, and obviously reduces the stress on your sinuses if you have seasonal allergies. Now, the other thing that I want to draw your attention to is an eye pillow. Very simple. This one was made for me years ago by a wonderful yoga instructor who was just really so grateful that she had such a huge following. When she left, she made everybody an eye pillow. Now, if they are made with natural materials, not materials, but if they have like either rice or corn on the inside, one is the wonderful thing that you can do with this eye pillow is that you can heat it up. And if you have seasonal allergies, sometimes putting that eye pillow on, that heat will help loosen up or help cause some of that drainage to come out. And that is good energy in as well. Now, sometimes also just the feeling of pressure on the sinuses and pushing on them is actually good enough to help reduce some of that stress on the sinuses when you have seasonal allergies. So you could use an eye pillow either heated or not, and you can also use an eye pillow with essential oils or not. And we've already talked about a couple of them that are really good for the nose and good for the chest, good for the lungs. We talked about rosemary and thyme. You could put a little bit on here, maybe a drop on here, and heat it up and then put it on your face, and that would provide both the smell and the sinus opening of that thyme and or rosemary, and then the pressure, the warm pressure on the eyes would actually help kind of relieve some of that stress. So that is a couple of ways that you can use the sense of touch to help improve seasonal allergies or allergies that end up in the face. Now, that is the end of allergies in the senses. Now, I happen to have just planned out next week, and next week we are talking about cold sensitivity, particularly those people who have a little bit of what's called Raynaud's phenomenon or Raynaud's syndrome, or Raynaud's, depending upon who you talk to. pronounces it differently. And that is when your fingers or your toes get really cold. It would also be for people who have a tendency to get chilblains, which means you get cold feet and then they warm up really quickly and then they end up being swollen and itchy, and the circulation just isn't really good to the toes or to the fingers. This can happen regardless of age. I've had chilblains since I was 7, maybe. So this is just something that chronically happens to me, and we're going to talk about how you can use the senses to get good energy into the cold sensation you have and actually kind of help heat your body up. All right, let's finish this off. Take a deep breath in and release. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.